Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today I want to talk about what I did and did not accomplish as far as my reading plans for March. This year has been a little bit slower going for me in terms of reading, in terms of the amount of books that I have read. I think when it comes to actual pages, I think that probably it's about the same on pace, maybe with the exception of February. February I did not read as much, but in March, I think I probably ended up reading about as much as I normally do. It's just more pages because the books that I'm reading are longer. And I am learning that I need to have a better mix. I need to plan a little bit better as far as a mix of longer and shorter books, because those long books really bog me down and make me kind of slumpy if I have too many of them going at the same time. And I get anxious to finish one for no other reason than I don't know why. I don't know why. It's a mental thing. And I want to, be finished with one, but it takes a significant time investment to do that. It's not like I can read an hour before I go to bed and then make, like significant progress and be almost done with the book. It means I now only have half of 1,200 pages instead of half of 300 pages. You know what I mean? It's a big difference. Anyway, so reading too many longer books at once has definitely been promoting the slump in my reading. So I need to be a little more careful about that going forward. However, I did get some great reading done. I read a total of 7 books that I finished in the month of March, and I accomplished almost all of my reading goals, which I will talk about in a second. So first of all, let's talk about that. What were my goals? So I had for my Reading the Classics challenge, the goal was to read a children's book, and I had picked Jack and Jill. And today is the 1st of April, and you can see that I am not quite halfway through this book. So I have not finished this one in the month of March, but I am planning to finish it this week. In fact, by the time this video goes live, I should have finished it. I hope to have. By the way, so normally I don't post on Fridays, not that anybody cares, but normally also I post my monthly wrap up together with a weekly reading vlog so that I don't have too many different videos to film. But I already filmed the first clip of this week's reading vlog coming up here on Sunday, and it was 25 minutes already. So I don't think I can add the month wrap up to that as well. So I'm filming it separately. So hence you get a little extra video on Friday if you can. So I did not finish that goal. However, the rest of my plans went pretty smoothly. So for the Read Your Shelf Challenge, for Chantel's Read Your Shelf Challenge, the prompt was time. And so I read The 5th of March by Rinaldi, which was what I planned to read, and I did read it. So I thought that was perfect because the date coincides with the month being in March, and also because, the element of time involved, the date being there. And the book, it's not as focused on the 5th of March as you might think by the title. The March 5th, 1770 doesn't occur until you're at least 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the book. And then everything after that is the aftermath of what happened on March 5th. So it maybe doesn't have as much significance as the book, as the title would lead you to believe. It's not like the whole book is about the 5th of March. However, it worked for the prompt. I read it and I didn't love it, but I did cross that off my list. And then the Christian Fiction Reading Challenge by Jeanette at Jane Reads. The prompt was to read a book set outside your home country. Now, I did not read the book that I planned to, which was Crossed Lines, I think, by Jennifer Delamere, because I realized that that book was the second in a series. So I found the first in the series on Hoopla, and I started reading that, and I ended up DNFing it. So I just couldn't. It wasn't interesting me at the time. Not that it was a terrible book. It wasn't interesting me. It wasn't what I wanted to read. I just gave up on it. And then I thought, well, I don't want to read the second book in the series. So I ended up unhauling that, which is also part of my March plans. So in the end, I chose to read a different book instead, and I'm really glad I did. I read The Paris Dressmaker by Cambron, which I also got on Hoopla. And that is set in Paris during World War II, And so it fit the prompt for being set outside your home country. And I really enjoyed it. It was a great read. I think I gave it 4 stars. So enjoyed that one and crossed it off the list. For the Jane Austen 250th birthday celebration, the goal was to read Cecilia by Fanny Burney. And I have to admit that there were times during the course of the month that I was quite sure I was not going to finish Cecilia. It seemed to just go on forever and ever and ever. But I did indeed finish reading it and I did enjoy it. So I managed to cross that off my list as well. There were a couple of group reads that I was involved in. First of all, The Power Through Prayer by E.M. Bounds, which I was reading with Tiffany at Beautiful Minutia and Novel Idea at A Novel Idea, and Kelly at Kelly Reads a Lot. We really enjoyed reading it. I read the whole thing and finished it up last Saturday and really enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars as well. It was a fantastic read and I am so thankful that Tiffany had the idea to organize that group read. And so I accomplished that goal. And then for the Count of Monte Cristo, my goal was just to start it and read in March and read, about a third of the way through. And so I didn't quite get to a third of the way through. I think I'm on like page 266 or something. And my copy has like 1,277 pages. So I still have about 1,000 pages left. So not quite 2/3 or not quite a third of the way through. However, I did make significant progress and it is an interesting read. So when I'm sitting down to read it, I can read quite a bit at a time. So that's good. I'm confident I'll be able to finish it by the end of May when I'm scheduled to. I also had some holdovers from February that I finished up early in March. And that was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and If the Boot Fits by Karen Witemeyer, and 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You, which was nonfiction by Toni Reinke. And I did finish all 3 of those and I enjoyed them to one extent or another. The other challenge or goal that I had for March was to unhaul a book. That was part of my Reading the Classics challenge. And so I did. I unhauled 3. I already mentioned I unhauled the Crossing the Lines or The Lines Cross, whatever, by Jennifer Delamere. I also am unhauling this one, The 5th of March by Anne Rinaldi. I mean, it was fine, but it wasn't great and I don't need to keep it on my shelf. And this one I got at a library book sale. It's called Second Impressions by Ava Farmer, and it is supposed to be a Pride and Prejudice sequel, but I've heard reviews about it that it's tedious and not super interesting, that the author did a great job with research and style, but it's lacking the interesting aspect of storytelling and it's just really dry. So that's kind of made me hesitate to pick it up. I've had it for a year or 2 now, and every time I put it on my TBR and think about it, I'm just like, I'm not interested. So I'm gonna unhaul it. I have way too many Austen things on my shelf that I actually do want to read or love, so I don't need to keep that one. So I unhauled 3 books, which isn't a lot, but it fits the challenge. So, and then from March of the Mammoths, which was an event that took place in March, I did read Cecilia by Fanny Burney, which, depending on the edition, is over 1,000 pages. My edition was more like 900 or something once you add or a little less than 900 once you add the pages of the 3 volumes together that I read, but I think it has to be 800 plus pages and it definitely qualified for that. So, and I started The Count of Monte Cristo, didn't finish it, but started it. And that is definitely a mammoth as well. And then for March Mystery Madness, I read That There Were None. And for middle grade March, I think that the 5th of March qualifies for that. It's really more young adult, but it also, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, would read this as well. It's kind of borderline there. So I think that qualifies for middle grade March. Also, Jack and Jill definitely qualifies for middle grade March, and I will be finishing that. I started it in March, but I didn't finish it. So those were my goals and how I accomplished them this month. Let's talk about the specific books I read real quick. Let me just give you a rundown of them. If you've been, following my channel and watching my weekly reading vlogs, I've talked about all of these in greater length, so I am not going to go into details about them. I'm just going to mention real quick what it is I read and just a quick recap of my thoughts about them. And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I started in February and finished early in March. Really love that story. It's probably I've only read 3 Agatha Christie, but it's definitely my favorite so far. I gave it 5 stars, thoroughly enjoyed that one. And then If the Boot Fits by Karen Witemeyer, I gave it, I think 3.5 stars. It was fun. It was a funny story. It was enjoyable. I always love Karen Witemeyer. It's a fun read in the mix of other things, especially if I have a lot of other heavier stuff going on, which was at the time, I really needed that palate cleanser of an easy, fun read. So I enjoyed that. And then 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You by Toni Reinke. I was very much challenged by that. I gave it 5 stars. It was one of 2 nonfiction reads that I had this month, and I highly recommend it for everyone. And then Cecilia by Fanny Burney, I read throughout the month of March and finished it towards the end. And it was very long. It was a very convoluted plot. There were a lot of words, a lot of unnecessary words, but it was a worthwhile read. And then The Paris Dressmaker by Kristy Cambron was a Christian fiction book that I read in the month of March, and I really enjoyed it. I always like Kristy Cambron's books. They may not always be my favorite books, but it is always an enjoyable reading process. She always writes historical fiction, and she has fantastic characters, and her style of writing is a little bit unique. This one, the narrative was a little bit disjointed, which was one of the things I didn't quite love about it, but it was still a very enjoyable experience and gave me a glimpse into certain aspects of World War II in Paris that I was previously unfamiliar with. So I enjoyed that. Power Through Prayer by Ian Bounds. I really enjoyed it, as I already mentioned. That was a fantastic nonfiction read, my second nonfiction read of the month, and I gave it 4 stars. Not that it was any less than, for example, 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You, which I gave 5 stars. It definitely was written for preachers. So there was a lot of application and a lot of value to me as a reader, even though I'm not a preacher, and it wasn't directed towards me. But it did take a little bit away from it. You know, it didn't make it like the best book that I've read about prayer, but there was definitely a lot of wonderful, challenging, helpful biblical information that gave me some great perspective and motivation when it comes to prayer. And then finally, the last book that I read and finished was The 5th of March by Rinaldi, which was young adult historical fiction. And I enjoyed reading it. I didn't hate the reading experience, but there were a lot of things about the book that I just didn't love. So I don't fully recommend it, but I am glad that I read it, and I want to read the other Anne Rinaldi books that I have on my shelf. And I still have Jack and Jill in progress, but I'm going to be reading it soon and finishing it. That one, I'll probably end up giving it 4 stars, and that qualifies for middle grade March, like I said, and for my Reading the Classics challenge as well. And yeah, I don't know if there's too much more to say about that one, but it was good. So going through my reading journal for the month, the green books are the books that I read in March, which was 7. So that brings the total for the year up to 22, which is not a lot, but like I said, I think that pages wise, I've probably read similar to what I would normally have read by this point in the year. And I've actually done really well with my nonfiction. Earlier this year, I made a goal that I would always have a Christian nonfiction book in progress. And that has really helped me to begin reading through my shelf of Christian nonfiction, which is my largest selection of unread physical TBR. So I'm making progress on that. Little baby progress, but I'm making progress. So that's making me happy. So I have 5 nonfiction that I've already read this year, and it's only the 3rd month, which is really high for me. Unfortunately, I only have 3 5 stars so far, which means it's been a bit of a bummer. Not that I have been reading terrible things or that I regret much of what I've read this year. It's just there hasn't been much that has risen to the top for me and been like peak reading experience. So, however, 2 of them were added in March, and there were none, and 12 Ways Your Phone is Changing You I added to this list. I haven't done any rereads yet. Well, Jack and Jill is almost done, so I will be able to cross that one off the reread list. Other than that, I really gotta move on. For my 50 by 50, I'm very happy because I was able to color off Cecilia, which was a big one. So I always love it when I can mark off a big one on this list. So that is a total of 5 that I have read from my 50 by 50. So, and I have until, so I need to do a little math here. It's 2025. So I have until 2030 to read the rest of these. I got this. Totally easy, totally easy. My goal this year has been to read 50% of my books from my shelf. Not 50% of the books that are on my shelf, but that 50% of the books I read be from my physical TBR. And I'm doing great. this year because I have read 22 books this year, and 12 of them, which is more than 50%, have been my physical TBR books, and I am very happy about that. For my own Reading the Classics challenge, I haven't written Jack and Jill there yet because I haven't finished it yet, but that's going to go there. It's in progress. It'll be done. It does fit the scavenger hunt items for siblings, a mother, and a pet. So there is a set of siblings. Jack has a brother, Frank. And then there are some other sibling sets in the book that, you know, are part of the story, but that's the primary one, Jack and his brother, Frank. Then there are actually two great moms in this book. So if you're ever looking for a children's book that has examples of fantastic moms, there are two wonderful mothers in this story. And then as far as a pet, there is a kitten, I think is called Snowball, that makes an appearance in the story periodically. And then we have Chantel's Reading Your Shelf Challenge. Yes. I wasn't sure that I would get to the March book in time, but I did. Haha, in time. Get it? So I am on track with that one. And for Jane's Reading Christian Fiction Challenge, I am on track also. I read The Paris Dressmaker for that. Celebrating Jane Austen, I read January, February, March. Next up is Pride and Prejudice. Now, so I am just marking off books where they take place geographically and seeing where I can go around the country and around the world. So the 5th of March takes place in Massachusetts. So that's a new one that I was able to color off on my map. Also, Jack and Jill is in Massachusetts. And then Karen Witmeyer's book takes place in Texas. So I was able to color that one off. So I am making progress on the US map. And I also made a little progress on the world map because Paris Dressmaker was set in France, so I was able to color off the France on my map. And so, in my book of the year 2025, which I decided that I'm focusing, like this is going to be fiction only. So I've read some really great nonfiction, but I'm not including it in this little contest to determine what my book of the year is. Maybe that'll be a separate thing, but this is my favorite fiction book. And so the first quarter is done. In January, Only the Beautiful was the winning book. In February, it was Sense and Sensibility. And in March, it was And Then There Were None. And so of those three, the one that I chose to move forward was, of course, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. It was hard to pick, but I thought as I was looking at it, I was like, okay, which of these three am I most likely to reread at some point? And Sense and Sensibility won, hands down. I will definitely reread it again at some point in the future. And Then There Were None, I possibly will, but not definitely. So there's a good possibility I might, but not definitely. And I probably won't ever reread Only the Beautiful. So that's why I picked Sense and Sensibility to move forward. So that one wins for the first quarter. So that is my March reading. How did your March reading go? Did you accomplish all of your plans? That's always what I feel like. You know, did I accomplish my goals for the month? Always feels good when I did. And I feel like in spite of the fact that I struggled in the month of March, I think that I had made achievable goals. And so I accomplished all of them except for finishing Jack and Jill, which I'm not worried about because I'll get to it. So I feel really good about how March went, even if it wasn't, you know, 9, 10, 11 books, which is typically more what I read. Even if I didn't have a lot of 5-star reads, I enjoyed what I read for the most part, and I don't regret any of it. And I accomplished the goals that I set out to do, at least 95% of them. So I'm happy about my March reading, but I'm really looking forward to April being a little bit lighter in terms of what I'm reading. I think it will be more enjoyable, more pleasurable reading, and less reading that takes more effort to do, or like a feeling of obligation. My feeling of obligation is only ever towards myself, by the way. I don't ever feel obligated to have to read books for someone else. You know, even like Buddy Reads or whatever, if I feel the need to put a book down, I will put a book down. It's just like a personal thing. There's, you know, just some books I'm like, I want to finish this book, even if, you know, it is a slog to get through or whatever. I'm rambling now, and so I'm gonna stop rambling and close up this video. Please continue the conversation in the comments and tell me all of your thoughts about your reading in March, my reading in March, how you're looking forward to April. How do you think it's going to compare to how your year has gone thus far? And I will see you next time. Bye. And here we are for another round of presenting to you a channel that you might want to subscribe to. So let me see, which one will we pick today? And God's brown-eyed girl it is. I will link to her in the description box and tag her. This is a newer channel. I've encountered her in a couple of different reading sprints and having conversations about books on other people's channels, and I have watched a few of her videos as well. Go ahead and give her a subscribe and a follow, and let me know in the comments if there is another channel that you think that I would like to subscribe to as well. See you next time. Bye!